In time, the name Molag Bal will be forgotten. In time, all of Tamriel will bow down before me. Soon, the god of schemes will have a new name, Mannimarco. A quote from Mannimarco himself. Mannimarco, the king of worms, was a powerful Altmeri mage, turned necromancer, turned lich. He was the leader of the Order of the Black Worm, and the age-old arch-enemy of the Mages Guild. Events involving Mannimarco date back to the Second Era, but his corruption and power has been felt across history. Many documents telling of Mannimarco not only go into great detail about him, but his old colleague Vanus Galerian, who had founded the Mages Guild. It is not known when Mannimarco was born. He was told to be of royal Altmeri blood. However, whatever this royal bloodline is remains unknown. It is told that he did in fact experience the infamous and most disastrous of the Dragon Breaks, the Dragon Break of the Middle Dawn, that took course over 1,000 years in the First Era. During this time, it is told that he learned something referred to as his mystery from the Marukari Selectives, the extremist cult responsible for the Dragon Break. Mannimarco eventually took membership within the Psijic Order around the Second Era 230. Among his colleagues, Mannimarco was a prodigy, noted as intelligent and gifted in the arts of magic. Another gifted student, Vanus Galerian, quickly made acquaintance with Mannimarco during their time as students. Mannimarco, in his earliest days of the Psijic Order, quickly became rumored as one of the greatest and most gifted students who ever lived. Only Vanus had rivaled his power. However, Mannimarco and Vanus held very contrasting ambitions. Vanus was told to have a heart that was light and warm, while Mannimarco had been noted for a heart that was dark and cold. At some point, Mannimarco began to study necromancy, and was fascinated by the secrets of necromancers. Although it is not sure exactly what led to this fascination, he quickly became enchanted by the limitless potential with souls and the dead. Eventually, through his infatuation, he became so obsessed that he began trapping victim souls and using them in his research. Necromancy and the magic regarding the use of souls is heavily frowned upon by many magical orders because of its cruelty and quick advancement into corruption and evil. The Psijic Order, among many of these magical orders, were heavily against these dark arts, and it was punishable by expulsion. After one of his spells caught the notice of Vanus, he confronted Mannimarco under the Kapora Tower, where he met Mannimarco with a caution. Your wicked mysticism is no way to wield your power. Your studies must cease, because you only bring horror to the spirit world. Vanus warned Mannimarco of his path to expulsion and corruption. However, Mannimarco paid no heed to this warning, and carried on with his experiments. Mannimarco quickly grew to despise Vanus, along with anything the Order taught. Mannimarco detested peace, order, and life. It wasn't long before the Order had turned against him in full, and the Psijic Council had decidedly banished Mannimarco from the Order and from Artaeum. However, Vannis was angered by this, as he knew Mannimarco would go on to cause chaos in the rest of Tamriel. Vannis too left the Order, and founded his own order of mages, birthing the Mages Guild in the Second Era. After his banishment, Mannimarco, on his own volition, as Vannis predicted, would go on a seemingly never-ending quest in search of power and to spread his dark influence. The many dark wizards and magic users who joined in his cult gifted him artifacts and even more power. After he was exiled from Artaeum, Mannimarco sought many different matters of lost knowledge regarding the necromantic arts, such as how dragon priests enthralled their draugr, ancient Aleatic tablets detailing how to summon dead spirits, and even something known as the Crimson Book of Skulls, a book that Shalador himself is believed to have destroyed. Another talented Altmeri wizard, who became esteemed as both Mannimarco and Vannis had in the Psijic Order, was Vastari. Vastari too became fascinated with the arts of necromancy, although the difference between her and Mannimarco was that Mannimarco had sought the arts for power and control, whereas Vastari's goals were much more obscured and esoteric. Her research guided her into finding a way to consult with souls upon death, and this research has proven incredibly valuable to mages to come. She too left Artaeum, and worked briefly with Mannimarco to further understand the use and potential of souls. Vastari proved quite useful to Mannimarco. She was able to explore the depths of oblivion, and retrieve soul gems that none had ever seen before. To Mannimarco, these soul gems proved incredibly valuable, as they were able to contain nearly any soul, and were highly indestructible. However, to Vastari, she held no use for them, and these gems were incredibly flawed to her. Vastari believed that enchantment was the only true and safest way to liberate a soul from their suffering. Vastari had eventually discovered what she desired in her research. However, Mannimarco was in disagreement and anger. To him, a soul gem was rendered useless if it was not meant for power or enchantment. He demanded that Vastari utilized her research to suit his goals and purposes. Eventually, Vastari escaped to Mannimarco and fled to an ancient Aleid ruin deep in the forests of Valenwood. She lived for many decades within the ruin, perfecting her study, until she eventually retreated. Mannimarco was a public enemy to all of Tamriel. However, he was arguably the arch-enemy of the Mages Guild and followers of Archay. The word of Mannimarco's power quickly spread throughout Tamriel, and many dark magic users joined in following him, and became known as the Order of the Black Worm. In a poem about him, he was described as being the world's first of the Undying Liches. Although this is not entirely true, as throughout history, there have been many immortal and powerful liches that have come before him. Mannimarco had lost his mind and his body in his own work, and through his work became undead. It is told that his once mortal blood turned acidic. His followers associated him with the dead, undead, and all things repulsive. Once he achieved this immortality, he had become known as the King of Worms. Mannimarco took not only aspiring necromancers under his wing in the worm cult, but hundreds of corrupted and insane mages, outcast witches, and even reachmen who practiced the dark arts. He collected any and all who were remotely involved in the necromantic network. This collective group of dark magic practitioners became known as the Order of the Black Worm. Since most of Tamriel regards necromancy as vile and punishable by a sentence or death, this cult mainly operated underground and in secret. Mannimarco, with his power, was able to bribe, convince, and intimidate political authorities to keep quiet about their operations. He was even able to convince Clivia Tharn, the temporary head of Cyrodiil during the Planemeld, to lift the ban on necromancy, and it became included as a legal craft in the magical arts. The Order of the Black Worm quickly became the leading group of mages to the Empire, instead of the Mages Guild. The Order of the Black Worm, despite being enthralled by chaos and evil, was quite orderly in their affairs. A typical member of the Order was known as a worm nest. They are typically under that of the worm anchorites. The anchorites report directly to Mannimarco himself. However, their means of telepathic and remote communication is yet unknown. Other members of the Order were known as Necromancer Adepts, Worm Warriors, and the lowest were Worm Thralls. Many corrupted mages were attracted to the Order with promises of power and great reward to those who served loyally to Mannimarco and the Order. Despite Mannimarco's clear ill intentions and rumors of his power, he grew trusted and advised many different political heads of Tamriel for years before the Planemeld arrived in full. Mannimarco, throughout the middle of much of Tamriel's history, had been a puppet master for much of the political conflicts of Tamriel. He held control over the Empire during the Interregnum. Molag Bal, the Daedric Prince of Domination, is often worshipped by necromancers and those who follow dark arts. Mannimarco coordinated with the Daedric Lord and went under his service. Molag Bal gave him the task of tricking the 5 companions into carrying out a ritual that would destroy the liminal barriers between Nirn and Oblivion, unknowingly. Mannimarco did indeed plan to carry this endeavor out. However, his true intention was to utilize the Amulet of Kings to imprison Molag Bal's essence within it, trap Molag Bal on Nirn, take Cold Harbor for himself, and take Molag Bal's place as a god. Although, to carry this out, Mannimarco needed the Amulet of Kings. In the decades leading up to the Planemeld, Mannimarco was an advisor of sorts to the soon-to-be-crowned Emperor Varen Aquilarios. Varen did not inherit the throne by blood, but he gained it by right of conquest. Varen was able to achieve this with the help of Mannimarco. They led an insurrection against the Longhouse Emperors, a group of Reachmen who gained control of the throne, and were incredibly barbaric in their forced leadership. Varen was able to slay the last of the Longhouse Emperors, Leovic, and claimed right to the throne. However, Varen could not yet officially be crowned as Emperor. He did not have the blood of the Emperor's past, and was unable to light the dragon fires in the Temple of the One, as this course was meant to be carried out as per tradition of the crowning of a new emperor. Mannimarco, as advisor to the future emperor, convinced Varen to gather together a group of powerful and trusted warriors. This included of Lyris Titanborn, a female Nordic warrior with giant blood flowing in her veins, Sai Sahan, a Redguard noble and talented swordmaster, Abner Tharn, the Grand Chancellor of the Elder Council, and Mannimarco, the powerful Altmeri wizard. These warriors were gathered together to locate the Amulet of Kings, step 1 in the equation. They had searched all of Tamriel until they had finally discovered its location, right under their noses at the ruins of Sancretor in Cyrodiil. Upon arrival to the Imperial City with the Amulet of Kings, Mannimarco was told to play upon Varen's insecurities and was able to persuade him that he could convince Akatosh to gift him the necessary dragon blood for the coronation. It was after this coronation had been attempted that the rest of the companions had discovered Mannimarco's true intentions. Mannimarco, through his power, was able to corrupt the Amulet of Kings. With the Amulet of Kings, he was able to ignite a catastrophic event known as the Soul Burst. This event tore a massive hole through the membrane of Mundus, allowing Molag Bal to infiltrate into Nirn. Molag Bal's goal was to merge Nirn with his plane of oblivion, Cold Harbor. Upon the Soul Burst, Varen had been consumed in its power, and the blame of his death fell on Sai Sahan and Lyris Titanborn for his wrongly death. The suspicion of them became inflated even more once Sai Sahan fled with the Amulet of Kings and returned it to the ruins of Sankrator, protected and hidden under an Adric ward of Stendar. Consider, dear reader, Tamriel is a ripe apple, dangling precariously from the flowering branches of a great tree. For eons it has hung far above, well out of reach of the hungry teeth, the Daedra, who would feast upon it. But the rending of the cosmic veil caused by the Soul Burst, Mannimarco's tainted coronation ritual, cracked the branch upon which our aforementioned apple grows. A quote from Abner Tharn, as written in the Chronicles of the Five Companions, Volume 8. Mannimarco, being the new puppeteer for what remained of power in the Empire, cast the Mages Guild out of Cyrodiil. Mannimarco believed that necromancy held dominance over all other forms of magic. Any others who sided with the Mages Guild, or were remaining members of it, were arrested by Mannimarco as enemies of the state. Abner Tharn, to avoid being placed on the long list of those who were to be executed or arrested, was forced to pledge loyalty to Mannimarco. However, he held no true loyalty to him. Abner Tharn's daughter, Clivia, had taken a temporary leadership of the throne as Empress Regent. Mannimarco, in the pact made with the Tharn family, raised the undead to fight for the side of the Imperials of the Alliance War. Even with Clivia Tharn as the titular Empress, Mannimarco still remained as the true power behind the throne. Eventually, Abner Tharn betrayed Mannimarco. Although he appeared to willingly service him, he had no intention of doing so in full. Despite the belief of Varen being consumed and thus killed in the Soul Burst, Varen miraculously survived this event and was trapped in Cold Harbor for a time. Although he eventually escaped, and in a weakened form, blinded and now elderly, carried on his life as an anonymous man, going by the Prophet. The Prophet had spread word of Mannimarco's betrayal and power. However, Mannimarco eventually had him arrested for spreading rumors and treason. The Prophet, with his wisdom, predicted the catastrophe of the Planemeld, and soon after did this prediction come true. The Imperial City had become engulfed in Daedric fire, and the first of the Dark Anchors had fallen upon the city. Systematically, Molag Bal's large and magical Dark Anchors rooted themselves across Nirn, dispelling his Daedra to open up further sections of Mundus. In the end, Mannimarco had expectedly betrayed Abner once he was finished utilizing him. Even Clivia had turned against her own father, under a promise from Mannimarco, and that he would take her under his wing and teach her his dark arts. A hero going by the title of the Vestige, along with many other lives, was sacrificed to Molag Bal. However, they were able to escape Cold Harbor and manifested back on Tamriel without a soul. and became popularly known as the Soulless One. After this escape, they were able to continually ruin Mannimarco's plans of trying to obtain the Amulet of Kings. Eventually, they were successfully able to destroy Mannimarco. However, his death was not enough to stop Mannimarco, as his soul still remained. Mannimarco told the vestige that his death hindered nothing, and that he would continue his chaos. By this time, Molag Bal manifested, revealing that he knew Mannimarco's true intentions all along, and dragged Mannimarco into the pits of Cold Harbor to torture his soul for his betrayal. The vestige and the other companions had made their way into Cold Harbor to cause an end to Molag's invasion, in which they discovered Mannimarco. It is unknown if the vestige freed him or not. However, Mannimarco somehow escaped Cold Harbor and made his return to Tamriel once again. Eventually, Vanus had departed the Mages Guild. He had grown tiresome and bothered by the inner political discrepancies that were occurring in the guild. Although his fight against Mannimarco had not ceased, when Mannimarco made his return to Tamriel, Vanus had met him with an army of mages and lamp knights. Despite Vanus dispelling himself from the Mages Guild, he utilized the collective force of the Mages Guild to face Mannimarco in one grand battle. Before the battle commenced, Vanus gave him a chance at surrender, stating, "Worm King, surrender your artifacts and their power to me, and you shall live as befits the dead." In which Mannimarco replied with a laugh, "And you die first." This battle was told to consist of waves of fire and frost, and lightning arcing forth. Mannimarco had taken on a form of a powerful undead lich during this battle. A supposed 1,000 men lost their lives in this battle, including Vanus, and with his defeat, Mannimarco too was supposedly killed, although some believe that Mannimarco did in fact survive this brutal clash and had gone into hiding for a lengthy amount of time before his eventual return. Mannimarco's power was not heard about for centuries to come after his supposed death. That is, until the years preceding the Warp in the West. Stories appeared of Mannimarco's return and his growing strength around the Iliac Bay. He still played an invisible role in the political landscape of Tamriel. The slowed necromancer Nagasta was even given his own domain by Mannimarco on the island of Stros Makai amid Thasad II's reign. The Slodes of Thras are known for their incredible skill in the arts of necromancy, and while they are typically conceited and individualistic, they admired Mannimarco for his undoubted aptitude in the arts of necromancy, and many Slode even worshipped him. Many throughout Tamriel acknowledged his power, and some Tamrielic nobles even sought out his assistance in gaining power, such as Morgaya, the daughter of Baron Zaya, along with the king of Firsthold in the Somerset Isles. Before the Warp in the West in the Third Era 405, Mannimarco was known to possess a vast amount of knowledge after centuries of hiding and being dedicated to his research. The hero of Daggerfall even sought him out in search of quests, and often carried out many tasks for him. He is suspected to somehow have been involved in the cataclysm of the Warp in the West, but it isn't known exactly how. The Warp in the West caused mass confusion and inexplicable results after it occurred in full. One story tells of there being more than one Mannimarco. Some even say that the Mannimarco that existed during this time was simply an aspiring and powerful necromancer who took on his name, or a mage that was somehow possessed or utilized by the real Mannimarco in some way. Many believe that during the chaos in the Dragon Break, Mannimarco finally reached his long-sought dream of godhood, after in one timeline of the Dragon Break, he got a hold of the Mantella and the Totem of Tiber's Septum, gaining control of the Numidium, and turning himself into the Necromancer's moon, also known as the Revenant. This mysterious moon had only appeared after the warp in the west. This moon appears in the trajectory of the celestial body of the divine Arche, despite Arche's teachings against that of necromancy. When this moon eclipses Arche, it allows the souls of those protected by Arche to be trapped by soul gems regardless. Some believe this moon is the personification and proof of his achievement of godhood of some kind. Not long into the course of the Dragon Break, Akatosh regained control over time, and this caused the Iliac Bay to repair itself. A scholar named Nuhata explains, "The Jills of Akatosh have mended this new edition. Mannimarco remains as he was, the High Priest of Maggots." Some believe this may allude to Mannimarco achieving godhood, but was cast down to Nirn once more. However, the mysterious Necromancer's moon remains, and is still worshipped by necromancers of modern times. This also may be considered true, as not long later, Mannimarco once again returned during the Oblivion Crisis. Some scholars believe that when Mannimarco achieved his supposed godhood, he broke in two, with his mortal and physical counterpart being cast back down to Nirn, and the metaphysical self of him remaining as the infamous Necromancer's moon. This moon became key in the creation and manifestation of creating black soul gems for many necromancers in the late years of the Third Era. Despite the stories of Mannimarco finally achieving some sort of godhood, an Altmeri Necromancer going by the name of Mannimarco reappeared once again and created the final installment of the infamous worm cult. Mannimarco had taken refuge and asylum in Echo Cave in Cyrodiil. Mannimarco is told during this time that he never needed to eat nor sleep to remain alive. During his reborn power surge amid the Oblivion Crisis, he is even told to have discovered the long-lost Vanus Galerian's corpse and utilized it as a dead thrall. Mannimarco had planned a full assault against the Mages Guild once more. Some say he chose this time to attack due to the Oblivion Crisis dealing a heavy blow to all of Tamriel, and during this time was when he had grown a second large following, due to the Archmage of the Mages Guild, Hannibal Traven, outlawing necromancy from the guild. Despite Vanus and many future guild leaders of the Mages Guild being against necromancy, many mages within the guild desired practice of it, leading to many expelling the Mages Guild and taking up places in isolation to study these practices. Under Mannimarco, they found power and fortitude. The Count of Skingrad, a vampire who was well knowledgeable about the practice of dark arts in Cyrodiil, had informed the hero of Kvatch about the return of Mannimarco. They brought this news to Hannibal Traven, the Archmage of the Mages Guild at the time. Traven tasked the hero to create a magnificent colossal black soul gem. Mannimarco had planned to use this soul gem to capture the soul of Traven himself. Traven knew of Mannimarco's power. In a drastic decision, he decided to trap his own soul within this colossal black soul gem. This would prevent Mannimarco from casting a thrall spell upon the hero of Kvatch. As Traven predicted, upon the meeting between the hero of Kvatch and Mannimarco, he did indeed cast a spell upon the hero to make them his thrall. Although Mannimarco did not notice the spell failed, and took to making his last spoken words to the hero. Power, my dear friend. I seek power, and so I acquire and study those who have some degree of it. We are after the same things, your guild and I, yet you worry about good and evil, and do not accept that they are manifestations of the same thing. So you brand me a villain, and make vain attempts to destroy me. I watch and I wait, and I collect you when you come for me. Mannimarco took great surprise when the hero was cognizant and able to fight back against him. Even with Mannimarco's power, the hero was still able to destroy him in a fight alone, putting a final end to the name of Mannimarco. Even for an Altmer, Mannimarco lived incredibly long, if indeed the Mannimarco present during the Third Era is the same Mannimarco present during the Second. Despite his long life, only few artifacts exist that coincide with him. The Bloodworm Helm is a skull helmet that empowers the magic of conjuration to whosoever wears it. This helm also holds the ability to turn the undead, drain the life force of enemies, and is even able to conjure a skeletal minion from the soul cairn. This helm was supposedly left behind as a reminder of Mannimarco's power after he finally disappeared. In the Third Era 427, this helm was in the possession of an insane Nord necromancer named Crazy Bateau. He holed up in a lair within a deep ancestral tomb in the Molagamer region of Vardenfell. The Nerevarine had killed Bateau, and the helm is believed to have eventually made its way to Terrassa Aram in her Museum of Artifacts. However, a few years later, this helm made its way to the Mages Guild at the Arcane University in Cyrodiil. When Mannimarco unleashed his fury once again against the Mages Guild within that year, Master Wizard Irlav Gerald retreated with the helm to the Blackwood region of Cyrodiil to Fort Telemin with a group of mages to research the artifact. They attempted to study this artifact to find a way in which Mannimarco could be stopped. Archmage Traven advised against doing this, as he feared for the safety of the mages. As Traven predicted, the mages were confronted by mysterious Daedra, who were summoned upon research of the artifact. The leader of these mages, himself, was murdered by a summoned Dremora. The Order of the Black Worm then attacked Fort Telemin to retrieve this artifact for Mannimarco. However, the Daedra were even hostile to them, and they were held back by the Daedric forces. With Traven's worry, he deployed the hero of Cyrodiil to retrieve the helm, and they had come head-to-head with both the Daedra and the cult members. They successfully retrieved the helm, and returned it to the security of the Arcane University. One of the most powerful and evil artifacts of Mannimarco is the Necromancer's Amulet, created by him himself. This amulet is incredibly intricate in design, usually with a skull appearing on the face of it. This amulet is incredibly powerful in the sense that it acts as armor. It grants a magical protection equal to that of full-plated armor. This amulet can also regenerate health, and mundane and ordinary weapons don't deal as much damage against those who don it. The power of this artifact comes at a price, however, as the wearer's life force and strength are often depleted upon its wear. Many necromancers, mages, and thieves seek this amulet. A curse is told to exist on this artifact. It is observed to fade in and out of existence, and will disappear for large amounts of time before returning at an incredible distance away from where it was last seen. During the Imperial Simulacrum, the Eternal Champion had uncovered this amulet, but where exactly they recovered it is debated. Some documents state it was High Rock, while others state the Somerset Isles. This amulet eventually reappeared just before the warp in the west. An ancient lich had uncovered this amulet, but eventually this amulet made its way into the hands of the Underking. The Underking promised this amulet as a reward to anyone who would bring him the totem of Tiber's Septum. Since the events of the warp in the west caused mass chaos and confusion, the exact result of who the amulet was given to is not known, although many believe it was in the possession of the hero of Daggerfall. Later in the Third Era, the amulet made its way into the hands of Archmage Trebonius Artorius of the Vardenfell branch of the Mages Guild. The Nerevarine had eventually got a hold of this relic, although exactly how it left the Archmage's possession is not known. At some point in time, these two artifacts were put in the possession of the Mages Guild. However, due to the nature of artifacts on Tamriel, they are likely missing from their possession, and especially likely due to the Mages Guild's disbandment. After this amulet made its home at the Arcane University, a mage from the Council of the Mages intended to give it to Mannimarco as he made his return. Although, upon an encounter with the hero of Kvatch, she was killed for her treachery, and the amulet was once again returned to the Arcane University. Although, after the Oblivion Crisis, it is not known exactly how it ended up in Skyrim in the 4th Era 201, as this artifact, like many, disappears and reappears in the most unlikely of places. A man named Calixto Corium, who lived in the city of Windhelm, was driven mad upon his sister Lucilla's death. He wished to bring her back to life after he discovered this powerful artifact. Calixto became fascinated in the arts of necromancy and attempted to use the artifact in his necromantic experiments. This amulet had been discovered by the last Dragonborn after they were investigating a series of vicious murders that were taking place in the city. In the end, Calixto had been responsible for the murders of multiple women and was brought to justice. The third and final artifact of Mannimarco is the very staff he wielded, known as the Staff of Worms. This staff will reanimate any corpse for 30 seconds. As most reanimated corpses, the undead follower holds no intelligence or cognition, but will follow any order and will defend the user of the staff at all costs. Mannimarco used this staff for most of his spells and practices, most notably in tearing open the membrane of Mundus during the Soul Burst, along with his battle against Abner Tharn. It is also told that Mannimarco's own robes after his death were often sought out by collectors and mages alike. Mannimarco's story from Psijic mage to necromancer to lich, to a supposed god, to revert back to mortal form to be killed once again, is a tale for many scholars to ponder. Whether Mannimarco truly achieved some kind of divinity caused by the chaos during the Dragon Break is debated, and whether the last seen Mannimarco of the Oblivion Crisis is yet the same Mannimarco that rose to great power during the Planemeld is also heavily contested. But what is known is that Mannimarco's power was truly a blight to Tamriel, and how his existence has led to the deaths of thousands throughout history, and whether he could return again to Tamriel once again, as he has many times before by means unexplained, is unknown.